Medici was at the Uffizi. There's a wonderful Annunciation there. Looking at the painting, he starts kicking, and the dad says, we're going to name him Leonardo.
DiCaprio's namesake was born out of wedlock in Florence in 1452.
Yeah, once again, Florence was ran by the Medicis, who were so-called black. Okay? Yes, they were. And, you know, before I forget, before it skips my mind, in addition to the serf rebellions that were happening in England in the late 1300s, you also have something called the 100 Years' War. Okay? The 100 Years' War was a major event that occurred in the reign of Edward III of England. For you guys who are familiar with the movie Braveheart, if you remember, there was a king in there named Longshanks who William Wallace was going against. He had a son who was a homosexual named Edward II. Edward II had a child with the French woman in the movie, Isabella of France, named Edward III. Edward III came into power when he was able to overcome his mother, who tried to seize the throne with a man named Roger Mortimer, who she fell in love with. Anyway, to make a long story short, Edward III overcame and took his throne back. And then he tried to claim the land in France that he felt like was his, because there was a claim that he felt was legitimate in regard to the northern part of France. I believe the region was called Aquitaine, because the Norman invasion had come from France, and they had a duchy. A duchy basically is a region that is ruled over by a duke, and the Duke of Normandy eventually became William, who was known as the Conqueror. He came over to England in 1066 AD and conquered the Anglo-Saxon king. I believe his name was Harold. I can't remember his last name. In 1066 AD, and they established a monarchy in England. Anyway, Edward III was a descendant of William the Conqueror, and he felt like that land in France should belong to him as well. That started a war with France known as the 100 Years' War. This also did a lot to hurt the black nobility in Europe, destabilize it, and it led to a lot of the uprisings of the Caucasians who were in servitude at the time. Okay? The Caucasians in Europe at that time period, in the 1300s going into the early 1400s, they were known as serfs in the western part of Europe. They were also known in the eastern part as Slavs, S-L-A-V-S. That's where you get the term slave from. Okay? Not being racial or racist, nothing like that. It's just the truth. Okay? So a lot of the infighting amongst the black nobility is what led to their downfall. But one of the main things that affected them was the so-called Black Death or the Black Plague, which is why they call it that, because it affected the so-called blacks more than it did the Caucasian. Okay, this is why you look at Europe and you think that Europe is a Caucasian land. It's really not. The Caucasian is not native to any land on the earth. Okay, the only place that they're native to is MT.SEIR. In the Middle East, and then also the Caucasus. They moved up into the Caucasus mountain region of the central steppe of Asia, and then they pushed outward and came out with many diseases. It's just a fact. Okay, they were having sex with goats and animals while they were up in that mountainous range. That's where you get many diseases from. Okay, just telling you facts. People might not like that. It is what it is. You can read a book called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler, and he tells you how they were living up in those caves, and he was a Caucasian Jewish man. It is what it is.